My mother passed away last spring. Breast cancer, caught late, went fast. 4 kids, all of us grown with our own families, and we handled it the way you handle those things. Arrangements, service, then the house. 4 siblings dividing 40 years of accumulated life into piles. What to keep, what to donate, what to throw away. I'm the organized one. Occupational habit. I work in insurance. I process claim files for a living, and I approach most things the way I approach a claim file, methodically, looking for what doesn't fit. I ended up with the home videos. Nobody else wanted the job of going through them, and I said I'd do it. VHS tapes from the 80s and 90s. 34 of them in a cardboard box, labeled in my mother's handwriting in blue marker. Christmas 1986. Danny's birthday 1988. Summer pool 1991. The usual archive of an ordinary family trying to hold on to ordinary time. I had them digitized through a service. Paid for the good transfer, the one that cleans up the color a little and stabilizes the frame. Got back a hard drive 2 weeks later with 34 files on it. I watched them over 3 evenings after my wife went to bed. Grief and nostalgia together, which is its own specific feeling. My parents young in a way I had forgotten. My siblings small. My father with more hair. My mother's voice on those tapes, coming through the laptop speakers in the living room while the house was quiet around me, was the hardest part. The way she laughed. The way she called our names. On the 3rd evening, I noticed the man. I was watching my 7th birthday party. 1987. Backyard. Streamers tied to the fence posts. A cake with uneven candles. Other kids I half recognized from 35 years away. 4 minutes of footage, the camera moving around the way home video cameras moved, panning and tilting without much intention. In the background, near the fence at the left edge of the frame, there was a man standing in a white coat, like a lab coat. He wasn't interacting with anyone, wasn't holding a plate or a drink, just standing with his hands at his sides, looking toward the center of the yard, toward the children. I rewound it, watched the 4 minutes again. He was there for all of it. Never moved closer, never left, just stood at the edge. I told myself it was a neighbor, maybe a doctor who had come from a shift and stopped by. Maybe my father had invited someone from work. There was a reasonable explanation, and I was a man who dealt in reasonable explanations for a living. I kept watching. The next video was Thanksgiving 1987. Interior of the family house. The dining room table, my grandmother serving, my father carving. Regular footage of a regular holiday. The man was visible through the doorway of the dining room, standing in the hallway. Same white coat, same stillness. Not eating, not talking to anyone. Just standing in the hallway of my family's house during Thanksgiving dinner, visible in the background of the frame for about 90 seconds before the camera moved away. I went back through all 34 videos, started from the beginning, took notes on a legal pad, every appearance, every timestamp, every location in the frame. 22 of the 34 videos, spanning 1984 to 1996, 12 years of family footage, always at the edge of the frame, always watching whatever was happening at the center, always the white coat. Sometimes barely visible, a shoulder in a doorway, a figure at the far end of the yard. Sometimes closer, though never close enough to see his face clearly. The video quality of that era doesn't allow for it. Too grainy, too compressed by 30 years and 2 format transfers. I made a timeline, plotted every appearance with the date and the location within the shot. The man's build was consistent across all 22 videos. Same height, same coat, same posture. 12 years is a long time. A person ages visibly across 12 years. As far as I could tell at this resolution, this man did not. I called my eldest sister, told her what I had found, described it calmly. She said I was probably conflating different people, neighbors and family friends who happened to dress similarly, the way memory and pattern recognition work against you sometimes. She said she didn't remember any man in a white coat. Not one specific memory of him across all those years. I sent her the files I had flagged. She called back 2 hours later. She was quiet on the phone for a moment before she said anything. Then she said, "That's the same man." I called all 3 siblings over the following 2 days. None of them remembered him. Not a single one. 4 people who had been present for those gatherings, who had grown up in that house and in that backyard, and not one of them had a memory of a man in a white coat watching them at birthday parties and holidays for 12 years. Then I called my father. He is 79, still sharp, still organized in the way engineers stay organized even when everything else slows down. He lives in an assisted living facility about 40 minutes from me. I described what I had found, and he listened without interrupting. When I finished, there was a... He said he didn't know who that was. I asked him directly, "Did he ever have a colleague who wore a lab coat? A doctor neighbor? Anyone who came and went from the house over those years who dressed that way?" He said no. Then he said, "Show me." I drove out the next morning with my laptop. We sat at a table in the common room after breakfast, and I went through every flagged clip with him, all 22. He watched each one without speaking. My father is a man who spent 40 years as a civil engineer. He has looked at problems his whole life. He watched those videos the way he looks at a structural drawing, carefully, without expression, not committing to a conclusion before the evidence is complete. When the last clip finished, he closed the laptop himself, set both hands flat on the table, and sat there. Then he said, "I have never seen that man before in my life." I asked him about Christmas 1987 specifically, the interior footage, the man standing in the doorway of the living room during the gift opening. The house would have been locked. We always locked the doors on Christmas morning until the children came downstairs. My mother was specific about that. My father looked at the still frame I pulled up on the screen, looked at it for a long time. Then he said, "We had a security system put in, January of 1988, right after that Christmas." He said it quietly, like he was thinking out loud rather than telling me. "Your mother wanted it. She said she had been feeling like someone had been in the house. I thought it was just nerves. You know how she worried. I had it put in anyway." I looked at him. He said, "She never said exactly what made her feel that way. She just said she felt it. And I never pressed her on it. I assumed she'd say more if she wanted to." He didn't say anything else for a while. We sat there together in the common room, and I didn't know what to say either, so I didn't say anything. I took the clearest frames to an imaging specialist I found through a forensic contact at my firm. People who do this kind of enhancement work for legal cases, accident reconstruction, that sort of thing. He was straightforward about what was possible with footage of this age and quality. He could sharpen. He could enhance contrast. He could do what the technology allowed. He could not perform miracles. What he gave me back was not a face. The resolution wasn't there, and it wasn't going to be. But the coat was clearer. And on the breast pocket of the coat, which I had not been able to make out before, there was something embroidered. A logo of some kind. The specialist cleaned it up as well as he could. I sent it to my brother, who is better with computers than any of us. He called back the next day. He had found a partial match. The logo style, the font, the general design matched a private research institution that had operated in our state during the 70s and 80s. It closed in 1993. He sent me a link to a small archived article about the closure. The institution was called the Harwell Center. The article described it as a private behavioral research facility. The closure piece was thin. It mentioned a state health department investigation that had begun in 1991. It said the investigation found irregularities in research protocols. It said the center had been voluntarily closed before the investigation concluded. It said the records had been sealed. I searched further. There was almost nothing. An old professional directory from 1985 had a staff listing. I went through the names. One name stopped me. I recognized it, not sharply, not with a clear memory attached, but the way you recognize the name of someone you knew at a distance a long time ago. A neighbor from the street I grew up on. 4 houses down. Quiet man. I had no real memory of him, just the vague sense of a presence on the block that I never had a reason to know better. He had moved away sometime in the mid-90s, which I only knew because at some point he was simply gone. I searched the name further. Found an obituary, 2019. Survived by a son and 2 grandchildren. I found the son through a professional networking site. Sent him a message explaining who I was and that I had some questions about his father. Kept it vague. Said I was trying to trace some history connected to my childhood neighborhood. He called me the same day. He was guarded at first, careful with what he said. I let him set the pace. I've spent 25 years talking to people who don't want to tell me things, and I know that you don't push. You create space and you wait. He told me his father had worked at the Harwell Center for most of his professional life. Behavioral observation research, that was the category he used. He said his father had never discussed the specifics of the work, not with family, not that he was aware of. It was simply what he did, and he didn't bring it home. Then the son said his father had become consumed by guilt in retirement. That was the word he used, consumed. He had begun going to confession regularly, despite not having been a religious man before. He had written letters that he never mailed. The son found them after his father died, going through the house, the same process I had gone through with my mother. I asked what the letters said. He was quiet for a moment. Then he told me they were addressed to families, different names, none of which the son recognized. Each one was an apology for something his father called the observation period. He didn't define it in the letters. He didn't explain the methodology or the purpose. He just apologized, repeatedly, across letter after letter, for what he called the intrusion, for the duration of it, for what they were trying to understand. I asked him if we were the only family. He said there were 31 letters. I sat with that for a while after we hung up. 31 families. Whatever the Harwell Center was studying, whatever behavioral observation meant in practice in a private research facility in rural Ohio in the 80s, they had done it to 31 families across however many years. The records are sealed. My requests to the state health department have not been answered. I don't expect they will be. I watched the videos one more time after that conversation, the last time. I went through all 22 clips in order, all the birthday parties and holidays and summer afternoons, and I watched the man at the edge of every frame, standing in my backyard, standing in my hallway, standing in my living room on Christmas morning with the door locked, watching my family the way you watch something you are documenting. I haven't watched them again. My mother felt someone in the house. She never described it more specifically than that. Never said who or what. She just felt it, the way you feel something true before you can prove it. And she had the locks changed and the alarm put in, and she never said another word about it to anyone. She raised 4 kids in that house for 12 more years after that Christmas, and she kept all those tapes in a box in the back of a closet, and she never told us what she had felt. I wonder if she watched them after we were grown, if she sat alone with those tapes at some point and saw what I saw, if she understood what she was looking at, and if she did, whether she taped the box shut and put it back in the closet, not because she was saving them, not out of nostalgia, but because she couldn't throw them away, and she couldn't watch them, and she didn't know what else to do. I found them in the back of a closet, in a box that had been taped shut with old tape, the kind that had gone yellow and brittle. She had sealed it a long time ago. I don't think she was saving them.